Sorry.
Is loading. Yeah, we can see it, but it's a little bit small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me a moment to try again. Okay, good morning everyone. Hope everyone is doing healthy and everyone is fine. So today I'll be talking about my internship presentation. I'm Sean, and for the past few months I've been working and interning at the Autism and Special Needs Center. It's Autism and Special Needs Center that's located in Setia Alam, and it was founded by Datin Sri Janet Chiu and our clinical director, Ms. Ellie Han, to offer a one-stop solution for individuals experiencing learning difficulties and psychological concerns. Some of the services include highly individualized behavioral therapy and psychotherapy for both children and adults. Though uh, though the center do have a couple of psychotherapy cases, uh, the center actually mainly focuses on behavioral therapy for children with learning disabilities, such as children on the autism spectrum, ADHD, behavioral problems, or even speech delays. And a bit about the organization. The center is run by the clinical director, Ms. Ellie, followed by two clinical psychologists who also act as clinical supervisors. And then the remainder of the team are made up of the behavioral therapists. And now with that out of the way, I'll start talking about my experiences for the past few months working at the Happy Lives. One of the main experience for me, of course, are when working with children, since most of the cases that are handled at the center involves children with learning disabilities, such as children on the spectrum, as mentioned earlier, ADHD. At first, for me, it was a really, I would say, overwhelming experience, since I never really had a lot of experience working with children. So there were times that I really had to adjust my mindset and go all out and really make the kid uh, bond with me, interact with me, and start to build rapport. And most of you know me, I'm not someone who is really expressive and open. So that's one of the main, I would say, obstacles that I have to overcome when I was working there. So for the first few months, I guess, first 1 2 months, it was a bit awkward for me to work with children. You know, when I interact with them, it may feel a bit unnatural at times, but as time goes on, I get feedback from the supervisors or the therapists. You know, I start to adjust myself to really interact and bond with the children. And it works especially well when I get closer to them, I get to know them more. You start to know about their different trigger points, what makes them, upset, feel sad, and what really motivates them doing a therapy. For some children, it would be motivation. Some would require you to explain to them the consequences. So this was one of the first things that I noticed is that every single children is really different from one another. Hence the individualized behavior therapy, because there's no one model fits all type of therapy that you can apply on all children. You have to constantly change your session and plan your sessions according to each children's need. And of course, you have to note that all of my observations and interaction with children are with the center and the parents' consent. That's one of the most important thing, I guess, working in this field is to have consent from the parents, especially. And there are also at times where The parents are actually one of the stresses, I guess, I would experience. It's one thing working with children in the room with other therapists, but it's another thing when sometimes the parents are around. You feel stressed that are you doing this thing correctly? Are you making the parents feel uncomfortable? But this is one of the things that I had to overcome. The parents send their children there to get therapy to uh, feel better about themselves, and at times I have to trust myself that I'm doing the right thing and just really immerse myself in my job and nothing about anything else. And that's probably one of the best ways to see that. And one of the main responsibilities that I also have at the center are to assist in diagnostic interviews. To put it simply, are basically consultation where the parents will come to see a clinical psychologist and talk a bit about the child's problem. And it is during that time that the interns or the other therapists would interact with the children to help the children build rapport, to let them feel more comfortable at the center, to let them open up, and most importantly is to look out for certain signs that do not really match up with a children's developmental milestone. There's a developmental milestone, I would say, is always mentioned when either we're planning session with children's or we're looking out for certain signs. So uh, I'll always take a look at when a children comes in, how old are they, and whether they are matching up to the developmental milestones such as maybe fine motor skills, gross motor skills, language skills, cognitive skills, things like that. And I will always have to bring it up to the psychologist so that it help her with her judgments. Of course, most of the judgment in the end will be from the clinical psychologist, but in a way, I'm just supporting and giving some supplementary info that will really help her understand more about the children. And moving on would be training sessions. Training sessions are actually one of the things that I really enjoy doing my time there. Some of the training sessions that I have experienced would be counseling skills, psychotherapy, art therapy. We also done some projective drawing, and it was really eye-opening for me, and I really get to experience the practical side of this field because all of the things that we've learned before this are in a classroom. Most of them are theory based, but when you're really trying things out for yourself, it is a really different experience, especially when we had counseling or psychotherapy training and we role played as like a client and therapy relation. I realized that whenever I'm the client, there are times where I will open up myself even when I don't want to. And the moment I really want to stop myself are the times that the words have already out of my mouth. So, there are really a lot of ways to make a client open up, and such as like drawing, those are really powerful tools that, make the client open up without it goes through the barriers, I would say. So there are times where the more I try to hide something, the easier it is for me to actually open up. And these transitions also include some more theory based, such as the developmental theories that we've learned before from like Freud, Erikson, which are really important, especially when I'm working with children. I should have a better understanding of the developmental theories, which helps me plan sessions and get a more better understanding on the why they're doing the sessions, how they're planning it. And moving on would be discussions. Discussions is also something that I really enjoy because it lets me see the different perspective from both the trainer who would be the clinical psychologist or the other interns or maybe the other therapists who are in the discussion training with me. So I really got to learn more about myself actually through this discussion, learn more about the topic and how others have different perspective on a certain topic. But for overall, my experience at the Happy Leaf, I would say is really eye-opening. I genuinely enjoy my time there, it helps me see a lot more about being in this field, and most importantly, it also gives me a chance to understand more about myself and some of the obstacles that I will have to overcome. Okay, now I'll be moving on to the application of knowledge. One of the application of knowledge, of course, most importantly, is the theories that I've learned in my class. So the abnormal psychology, whatever subjects in psychology we have learned, it comes in really handy, especially when I'm handling diagnostic interviews or I'm working with children, planning sessions for them. It's really important to at least have an understanding of the subject. And as I mentioned earlier, developmental milestone for children is always mentioned. And I would say that there are times I would question myself, why are we learning about developmental milestones during class? I always thought that I'll be working with adults, but it actually gives you a better understanding of why someone behaves in a certain behavior. Maybe even from adult, they might have some problems they haven't overcome in their developmental milestone when they're young. And not only that I also have to use some of the knowledge I have on the DSM-5. I would say that if I didn't have any knowledge about this, I would be really confused whenever I have to refer to it and look through the signs or symptoms of certain disorders, such as autism. And all in all, the theories that I've learned really came in handy. And moving on would be, second one would be research skills. So recently, I've been asked to assist in the director's doctor's research, and I would say that if I didn't have uh, at least a basic understanding of research, I would not be able to contribute as much as I can right now. Although I would say that the requirements of the academic writing and the research skills are above of what I think I'm capable of, but with the guidance of the director and the other research assistant, I'm gradually set back on track. And the last one would be self-reflection, which really comes as a surprise to me. I'm sure all of you have times where you question yourself, why is Miss Anna or Miss Jane constantly giving us reflection assignments, especially in experiential learning where we had to write reflections at the end of every week. Yeah, I've heard friends who constantly ask, why are we writing this? But self-reflection is actually a really important topic being in this field, because self-reflection helps you to learn more about yourself, your problems, and how to solve them. There's also one thing that I've learned during my training, especially in counseling, psychotherapy. The psychologist will often ask questions, open-ended questions that allows the client to self-reflect, because at the end of the day, the person who knows the problem the best and the solution is the client themselves. So there are many times I will have to self-reflect on my actions or some of the issues that I'm facing, and of course I will have to overcome this and build myself to be a better me before working with other clients or working with children. So I would say self-reflection is a really, really important aspect of being in this field. And I would say we recommend that everyone should self-reflect more often, especially if you're planning to proceed your career in this field. And that is pretty much all for me. Thank you everyone for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. So, yes, participant, anyone would like to ask any questions? Thank you for Mr. Edward who joined us. He is actually the supervisor of Sean.
Hi, Miss Anna. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. So yeah, thanks. It's like I say, it's very appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So based on your experience with guiding Sean throughout this whole semester or this 14 weeks, what do you think that he should actually improve?
Okay, right. That's a great question, because to be honest, Sean has been really excellent in terms of how much help he's been providing with us, how open he has been, in regards to his learning. He takes feedback well. He improves on that feedback as well. You see, the area which I feel that he could improve on is the next target he needs to set for himself is just, if he chooses to continue in this field, is really just more exposure, more time, and he just need time, experience, and opportunities to work with a wider range of children as well. Try out different things. You see, and of course, the last thing which he mentioned just now about self-reflection. I think this one crucial but this is something which we do for most of our therapists as well. To constantly encourage self-reflection, to understand what is causing those blocks that are, that could potentially affect how you interact with a child, or how you perceive the child and how you conceptualize a case. So if he can work on all of that, then I really feel that he can go quite far in this field.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
Thanks very much, Susanna.
Sean, I have one question for you. As a senior, so you have your junior over here who are going for internship, maybe like the next few semester. If let's say they would like to go for the similar field, what kind of advice you would actually give to them?
I would say for me, like I would mention earlier, as I've mentioned earlier in my presentation, I would say is to really change your mindset and really self-reflect, especially being in this field. When there are many times that I've gotten feedback and I know what I'm supposed to do, but yet there's an obstacle that's really holding me back from really giving all out and totally immersing myself in a session. So I would say to always self-reflect. That's one of the things that I've learned during this time, that self-reflection is really important. So I've been self-reflecting, I think pretty much almost every day about everything that occurs in my life. And also another thing is to always be open to new experiences. If I were not as willing to try as I was during my time there, I would really miss out on a lot of exposures and learning about making mistakes and overcoming those mistakes. So the two main points would be to self-reflect more often and to really open up your mindset and really give all out and try everything being in this field.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the other juniors, any question that you would like to ask Sean? If you ever see the internship tracker, this organization is part of the possible place that you can actually apply for, because Sean actually gave a good review about his experience. Yeah. Other people, I know most of you are actually keen for mental health field, but you don't really know what is happening in that field. So maybe this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions. Any more? If no, then we will move to Shelby. No? Okay, Shelby, it's your time. Have you ever doubted yourself before? Okay, Sean, questions.
In terms of knowledge. Okay, that's a good question. I'll answer Alina's question first. Have I ever doubted myself before in terms of knowledge? Most of the time during discussion or trainings, I'm pretty confident in my knowledge in that sense. So I never really doubted myself, except when I've met the other research assistant who is really good at, in psychology basically. And there are times, of course, where this insecurity comes out and I doubted myself, thinking that am I really good, or I'm just subpar and there are a lot of people better than me. But of course, there will always be people who are better than you. But most importantly, you have to know about what can you do to make yourself even better. There's always a limit of how far you can go, and are you always pushing yourself to that limit? I think if you're able to do that and constantly give your all at all times, I think even if you doubt yourself, it shouldn't be much of a problem. You'll be able to overcome those doubts. Hope that answer your questions. And Isabel asks, I always thought about working with children, so why do you end up? Okay, so I end up interning with children because, I always thought about going into the field of clinical psychology, going to a master's program, and doing the practicum or, the clinical practice. Most probably, I would have the chance to work with adults. I always thought about working with adults with depression or anxiety disorders, but I forgot about the other part that's equally important, which are children. So if I'm not able to gain experience from working with children and only focusing purely on working with adults, later on, I would guess that in my when when or if I really practice as a clinical psychologist, I would only have experience in working with adults. And if I were to come across cases where I have to work with children, I might not be really good at it. I might not be confident. I might not have the exposure, the experience of working with children, because from as far as I've understood, working with children and working with adults are totally different things. So I thought of learning about children first during this time my internship, and after that I can focus on working with adults later on when I uh, continue for a master's program. And I hope that answer your question, Isabel. Thank you. Okay, and Edward has a question. Did you feel and chance? Yes. Yeah. Working as a male therapist, one of the main thing is that impression you're giving off. A lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but parents tend to feel uncomfortable when a therapist is being really close to a child. When there are times where we have to hold down the child or carry the child. There might be some stereotypical views, I would say, or some stigma between a male working really close with children, especially if the children, uh, especially if the children are girls, females. So I would have to make sure that whenever I hold them or carry them, it has to be really appropriate, no accidental touches, anywhere private, and always have to make sure that, yeah, I would say to just hold them in a really appropriate manner and always be aware that where my hands are and not close to any areas that would seem appropriate. Hope that answers your question, Edward. Nadia, self-reflection can sound like, oh, how do I work? Yeah, that's the thing about self-reflection, is that there are many times that I've been into a rabbit hole where I just keep thinking about more and more problems that I'm facing. There are even times that I start to lose confidence that I had during my time in Inti, and I would say to just keep self-reflecting, but in a more positive manner. Don't only focus on your issues, the bad things that you found out about yourself, but also focus on the positive side of things. So whenever you self-reflect, look at the bad parts, focus on it, know about the problems that you have to overcome, but also know that there are good things that you can do. Don't always focus on negativity, focus more on the positivity. And after some time, you start to realize, there are a lot of good aspects about you, and you can do a lot of things. So at that time, you know to trust yourself more, and you start to push away all those doubts. Hope that answers your question. And Vishalan, how did you deal with anxiety? Sorry. Okay. The anxiety. Again, I think it will go back to self-reflection. One of the anxiety that I've just realized that I've been experiencing is the shift from being being really good in class, having positions in the club, working with other people, constantly being good at what I do. But whenever I head to an environment where it's totally new, I'm starting from scratch, I have to learn everything from everyone else. I start to feel anxiety. I start to lose confidence in myself that am I actually capable of doing these things? Again, it all goes back to self-reflection. I start to realize that it's a really big shift, from being in a classroom settings where you only had to focus on theories, your assignments, keeping up with the grades. But when you're working, it really shifts into a role where you need your, I would say, socialization skills, how much you're able to give your all and really interact with people. You also start to realize that you have shortcomings, but always know that it's a really big shift. You cannot expect yourself to be really good in every single thing you do. That's the one thing that I've learned, is that there are times that you will not be able to cope, or you will take some time to get into a new position, a new responsibility, and that's totally normal. Just keep a cool head and really take things step by step instead of trying to keep up with your expectations constantly. That's one of the things that really made me feel burnt out doing sometimes. And now that I'm trying to learn to deal with, setting down my expectation a bit, especially if I'm in a totally new environment and I might not be able to meet all of the expectations, and that's okay. So I have to focus on myself more, focus on the good parts, and really take my time. Of course, not too much time. Take my time to get myself ready and slowly shift into that environment. Once you're comfortable, you start to see yourself improve. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. And Jasmine, which personality interest you? Okay. I would say that some of the traits is that I'm really open to learning new experiences. Thinking about it, I don't think there are any times that I would reject whenever I was asked for help, or whenever and a new opportunity arises. So, for example, I was only recently asked to assist in research. There was something really new for me, and I felt like, why not just give it a try? I would say that this mindset or mentality of constantly willing to try, willing to uh, go in and try new things is, I think I would say that's one of the skill traits that make them hire me. I'm not too sure. I've never really asked them about that. But yeah, that, and also being confident in whatever you do. I guess during my interviews, I was confident enough. I was really sure that I really want to be in this field, and I'm willing to make the commitment to try out new things, to learn more. I think I would say those are the traits that uh, make them hire me. I can't say for sure, but that's just my guess. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, so let's move to Shelby.
All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen now. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna start right now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shelby, and today I'm gonna share my internship experience at Soul's Health as a program coordinator. So a little bit about Soul's Health. Soul's Health is a community mental health center based in Sulawesi, first established in 2014. So they mainly focus on a few things, which is combating the stigma of mental health in Malaysia, as well as connecting clients to accessible individual, family, as well as community mental health services. Their vision is to pioneer trauma-informed community mental health services in Malaysia, and their mission is to develop socially responsible practitioners, provide accessible trauma-informed care mental health services, and to challenge the stigma of mental health. So this is a simple organizational chart of Soul's Health. Soul's Health is led by the Managing Director, Ms. Elisha Othman, and underneath her leadership, there is 4 departments that makes up Soul's Health, which are Professional Services, Community Development, Research and Advocacy, and Transformation Office. So Professional Service is led by Ms. Liana Muhammad Nawi, And their main purpose is to provide support, mental health support and therapy services to individuals, families, and even employees through their center services and programs such as BRAVE and EAP. So for BRAVE, we will talk about it a little more later, and EAP is the Employee Assistance Program. And then there's the community development led by Ms. Cindy Chew, and their main purpose, what they mainly do is to have community outreach programs whereby they can provide support, mental health support to families and communities. As for research and advocacy, it's led by Dr. Aman Rashid, and by the name you will know that their main job is research and advocacy. So they mainly do research for both our internal source health team as well as also for external users where our partners and stakeholders might need some research report. So this is where the research and advocacy team will come in. And then lastly, there's the transformation office led by Ms. Lim Chao Ki. And this department, they mainly do all the behind the scene but equally important aspects of source health such as finance, marketing, HR, and even strategic planning. So next, we're going to go on to my team and my role. Basically, I'm part of the BRAVE team under professional services. And BRAVE is short for Building Resilience, Acceptance, Valiance, and Empowerment. So this team is led by Ms. Fanella Ting, an experienced counselor. The main purpose of BRAVE is to provide accessible services to survivors of abuse or physical and sexual abuse and or trauma. Other than that, they also provide specialized trauma training to mental health professionals such as social workers. Our key partners includes WAO, which is the Women's Aid Organization, PKK, and Puat Payung. So in this team, I have a few roles. Other than program coordinator, I'm also the person in charge for comms team, as well as the person in charge for recruitment activities for BRAVE team. So for the past few months, there have been a lot of stuff that I've been tasked to do. Interesting stuff ranging from program coordination to recruitment and social media even. So some of them include coordinating and assisting and supervisions, conducting the trainings to incoming trainees, managing BRAVE client data, assisting in client case management, involved in the negotiation and discussion of potential collaboration with other organizations, as well as drafting the contract for these potential collaboration. Ensuring that necessary documents such as handover reports, termination reports, progress notes, all these kind of important documents, and communicating with therapists to see if they are available to accept certain cases. Other than that, I've also assisted in the team's quarterly strategic planning, and Ms. Fanella, the team leader, has also tasked me with a research, kind of like literature review research on the topic of confidentiality and ethical dilemmas. And I've also written the report to be sent to our partners and stakeholders after a project was done. Assisted the research and advocacy team in the PKK research project, whereby I helped with the data entry, created operational and clinical SOPs and flowcharts. And as for the PIC for comms team, I also created social media content for our Instagram page. And as the PIC for recruitment activities, I was part of the recruitment activities where I had to screen potential applicants, see whether they are a good fit to our team, and seeing whether we would want to interview them. So yeah, this has been all the things, some of the things that I've done. And then moving on to knowledge. So some of the knowledge that I was able to apply in my internship was the knowledge on domestic violence as well as the knowledge on research. So this knowledge on domestic violence, I got this knowledge mainly from our sociology subjects, whereby in one of our sociology classes, we get to hear from a sharing by a survivor of domestic violence. And that really opened up our eyes, changed our perspective on domestic violence, right? And this was very beneficial, especially when I'm doing client case management. So as part of client case management, I have to hear some stories, some traumatic experiences that some of our clients have faced, as a lot of our clients are victims, survivors of abuse. all those kind of things. So it was very beneficial. This knowledge has been very benefiting for me during client case management, as this knowledge has caused me to become more empathetic. It caused me to become more resilient, and I was able to view things from a different perspective. And this has really helped me in being able to do client case management much more efficiently and much more better. And it's also very beneficial when I am having discussion negotiation with potential partners and stakeholders, because as someone who is representing the Brave team and Soul's Health, I think it was necessary for us to know a bit of knowledge about the kind of clients that we are working with, the situations that our client is dealing with, and how we as a community mental health center can provide support to these clients. So next is the knowledge on research. As you all would have all had courses, you all would have learned something about research, and this has been very applicable to me, especially when it comes to literature review as well as data analysis. So like I said before, I was tasked with doing a literature review research on confidentiality and ethical dilemmas, and the knowledge on literature review, such as what kind of journal articles to look for, from what year to what year of journal articles should we look for, let's say in 2021, we should look for journal articles between 2016 and 2021, for example. This has really benefited me in doing this research. And other than that, the knowledge on data analysis has also been very beneficial and applicable to me when I'm assisting the research and advocacy team in the PKK project. And just a little self-reflection. After doing some self-reflection, I realized that there are some weaknesses and strengths when I'm in this internship. And I think that some of the weaknesses was presentation skills and creativity skills. While discussing with other organizations on potential collaborations, I was tasked with presenting some ideas, some proposals that we have came up with from our end. But however, I felt that during this presentation, I was not as confident. I was very hesitant. There were some things that I probably wanted to say but didn't say. And I think that after self-reflecting, that presentation wasn't my best presentation. That's why I feel that it is one of the weaknesses that I should work on. And as for creativity skills, as part of the PIC for the comms team, I was supposed to, create some social media content for our Instagram page. Coming up with the content was easy, but coming up with the design, it took me a lot of time. It took me days and days. Yet I still couldn't come up with a design that I was satisfied with, that I would want to share with the Instagram audience. And at the end, I passed it back to the comms team and said, I tried, this is all I can do. Can you all help me make it look way better than it is right now? So some of the ways I think that I could improve is to do my homework, be prepared, know what you are going to present, as well as practicing, keep repeating, rehearsing before the presentation. And as for improving my creativity skills, I think that getting inspiration from online websites such as Behance, Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, all those would be quite beneficial in improving my creativity skills. And lastly, it's the strength. I think that throughout, I feel that I managed to help the organization with my good organizational skills. And I think I have that when I was tasked with organizing the company's Google Drive, company's database, client database, and so on. And adaptability. I think adaptability is something that I had, and it was a strength for me, because if I wasn't able to adapt as well as I did, at least I think I did, this internship experience wouldn't be as smooth, I would say, as I think it was. So yeah, this is my self-reflection. So thank you so much for your time. So yeah.
Okay, anyone would like to ask regarding this particular field? This is quite different from what Sean experienced. Before they type out the question, Shelby, what makes you think that you want to go for this particular position?
As a program coordinator at Soul's Health, right?
Yeah.
the main thing is that, first of all, I'm very interested in going into the field of clinical psychology, and it being a center that provides mental health support, mental health therapy services. That was one of the first thing that got me very interested into going into soul self. And secondly, they are just not about therapy services. They are also about community development NGO, where it's trying to provide as much as support as they can for those who probably don't have the chance, like let's say people in the B40 community and so on. So, and that has also been a passion for me, to be able to help those who doesn't have the chance to. So with this two things in mind, that's what made it very attractive. This position very attractive to me, because I think I'm able to do a part as someone if I'm in this position.
Okay, so you are the final semester student, and then you plan to further study, right? So how this internship experience actually can be beneficial for your future?
All right. So to answer this question, I think a little bit of background on Souls when I first went in is, when I first went in, they did ask a few questions like, what are you planning to get out of this internship? And what my answer was that I want to see how a mental health clinic runs. Because moving on, if I want to become a clinical psychologist, I want to move on, take my master's and become a clinical psychologist. I think one of the important thing is to know what goes on behind the daily life of a clinical psychologist. And I think as Soul's Health, that's what they really did lah, because we get to go. I was part of a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions where they have to discuss and amend clinical SOPs, operational SOPs, how progress notes should be written and everything, and even what are the SOPs if, let's say, our clients say that came to one of the therapists and say that, I'm a victim of domestic abuse or sexual abuse. So what are the steps that we as a mental health clinic has to take, whether it's to report the police and so on. So I think to see how it goes on behind it is really beneficial to me, because I know, like, okay, will be what I will be expecting if I continue on this pathway to become a clinical psychologist. So it's very insightful for me lah.
Okay, so Alena actually asked a questions.
Yes, being exposed to so many cases of domestic violence, does it have any effect on your mental health? A little bit, yes. I do have to say yes, because, gonna be honest, some of it is really quite disturbing. It's a hard pill to swallow, but then thankfully, I think Soul's Health is they emphasize a lot on not just their clients' mental health, but also each one of us, our interns, volunteers, anyone who's the part of the team, the mental health of part of the team. So they always, every week, they do have check-ins, and throughout this check-in, there are times where I do express like, wow, hearing this story is a hard pill to swallow. And our supervisors, our team leaders, they always give good advice on how to juggle, how to go through these emotions and how to deal with it. So thankfully, everyone at Soul Self was very supportive, so that helped. I hope that answers your question. Do you ever doubt your choice to become a clinical psychologist? No, not at all. I think that throughout this internship experience, I'm even more adamant. I'm even more sure that I want to become a clinical psychologist. So yeah, no, I've never doubted myself.
Great. So, okay, Mr. Abbott has a question.
Now that you have worked with communities at Souls, what values do you feel is important to keep the forefront of practice? what values do you feel is important to keep at the forefront of your practice? I think the main thing is empathy and acceptance, because these are, as a clinical psychologist, people are gonna, as a therapist also, people are gonna come to you, they are gonna trust you with a lot of informations that they are not gonna, they probably can't tell anyone else. So being empathetic towards and accepting of whatever the client say is very important in helping, is part of the first step in making progress in the client's mental health. So I think the empathy, being able to build that trust is also very important, because building rapport between therapists and the client is very important. So I think that the values of being trustworthy enough, being empathetic, as well as being accepting of all kinds of people is something that's very important, I think. Based on your experience, can you suggest one emergency solution to deal with situations when seek help first? Okay, so based on, I'm just going to say something from the discussion that I remember having. Suggest one emergency solution. I think the main thing is to make sure that the client, the person who's asking to seek help, the first thing is make sure that they are physically safe at the moment. They are at a safe place at the moment. And once you ensure that their physical safety is first met, then only we proceed to the next step on whether the victim, the client is willing to take police action and so on. But the main thing, the first thing first, you have to make sure that they are physically safe at the moment. So yeah.
Thank you, Shelby. Okay, next will be Shanita. Thanks, Shanita, for agreed to share your experience, even though you are not going to get any marks.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So hi everyone. Unlike Sean and Shelby, I completed my internship last year, and I did it at Relationary, which is a psychology center at San Vigio. And yeah, so they do a lot of things. They do coaching, counseling, assessments, pretty much anything related to psychology. And as my months were there, towards the end, they even did a lot of child cases as well. It's not a new company, even though they've been in Geo for quite some time. They used to have a different office in Intermark, KL. And yeah, so while I was there, my the undergrad interns, and my job was handling the assessments. So you get to score the assessments, you get to file them, you handle the client's file, you handle their appointments, you take IPCs, which is initial phone contacts from any clients. And these calls can range from being simple questions about wanting to know more about what kind of treatment they should go for and things like that, to serious calls where they need immediate help and you have to be able to guide them to get the proper help. And apart from that, as a PA, I also did a few different projects. So one of the projects was Mental Health Awareness Day, which was on October 10th. And we organized a webinar, we prepared free screenings for people and everything. And yeah, and I also joined a lot of different case discussions with the other colleagues and everything. So the thing about working in military that was really interesting for me is that everyone here was like a whole family thing in those case where everyone just laughed and they shared their stress and things like that. So it wasn't very stressful on anyone, and they were all very willing to guide you through anything. And they were also very willing to teach because I had a lot of questions, and so did my other internship friends. And the clinicians would always answer our questions, no matter how like ridiculous or anything that it was. Yeah, and as for application of knowledge and skills, I think the main skill that we always hear about in almost every psychology class is being empathetic and active listening. And because you have to have empathy not just with the clients but also with your colleagues, because it's not easy being a clinician and having to do like maybe 5 6 different cases a day. And as for the clients, if you don't sound empathetic enough, they won't feel safe enough to come to the center and also to reach out for help. And active listening is very important as well, especially when you're taking those calls, because it relies on what you hear, um, the tone of voice of the client, what they're trying to say, the background. Is it okay? Do they need extra help? Are they whispering? Are they talking in a normal voice? What kind of questions they're asking? Everything. So you have to be able to sort of pick up all these little hints that come in the call. Yeah. And aside from that, all the knowledge that I learned in my degree, so especially like with abnormal, see how to recognize whether it's autism, ADHD, bipolar, and everything. It really comes into play because when they discuss cases, the patients do look at you and they be like, "So, what do you think about this? Like, do you think that what is your take on it? Do you think that the client is ADHD or autistic? What did you observe from this? What did you observe from the session and things like that?" And yeah, so that's how I got to put and apply my knowledge uh, throughout my internship period. And I think that's it from me. So if you all have any questions, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So you are currently working, right?
That's where I'm working.
Okay, so can you actually share a little bit about your current workplace? Because it's also relating to mental health, but it is quite different from the place where you had your internship, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mm.
Center called Bright Stars is located in Ara Damansara. So I work as an autism therapist. I do special education, and currently I'm also doing shadowing at a nearby kindergarten for one of the students there.
Okay, can you share a little bit about shadow? Because I think most of them don't really know what is shadow.
Okay, so shadowing is basically you follow a kid to school and you help them uh, adapt to their environment, because these kids, they're special, so in that sense they may not be able to get along with their classmates or follow through with instructions given by teachers academic wise and whatnot. And as a shadow, your main job is to guide them through slowly adapting lah. So in my case, the kid still he can't do anything, and my job is to have him slowly adapt. So make sure he sits still during class periods and behaves properly, is able to follow the teacher's instructions and things like that.
Okay, so if let's say your junior would like to join for like special education, what are the things they should actually prepare, like mentally or their skill or their knowledge?
Okay. In special education, I would say patience is very important, because the kids take a lot of time for them to process what's going on and everything. And on top of that, they either don't have a lot of attention or they're attention seeking. In both cases, they would if they don't have enough attention, then they won't be able to complete the work. And if they're attention seeking, they would purposely not complete the work, and you have to be patient enough to handle um, tendencies. And aside from that, prepare yourself mentally because it is definitely not easy. Um, Working with special needs kids also means that they don't know how to channel their emotions. So when they are frustrated or excited, they tend to use physical gestures. So you have stretching, biting, hitting, and things like that. But that is the way that they express themselves. So you can't really get mad or anything. You have to just teach them how to regulate it. And always be prepared, flexible. That would be the main thing that you need for, and I think any side field, lah, especially in special ed, because you have to be able to adapt whatever your plan is for that day according to the kid's mood, the willingness to comply, their behavior, and everything.
Okay. So, have you ever doubt yourself to become like who you are in these positions?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Have you ever doubt yourself to become the special educator?
Uh, yes, I have. Because I wanted to give it a try. In the long run, I was really hoping to. I mean, I'm hoping to be like a clinical child psychologist. So things like this is definitely something you need. And then within my first month of working, I realized how straining it is. So for me, it was like, will I actually be able to do this? And but I think it lucky for me is that the environment is so nice. Everyone is willing to teach and everything. And eventually, I'm like, actually, I enjoy this. So if I enjoy this, then I guess it means I can do it, and that reduces my doubt.
Okay. So, what motivates you to apply for this position? Shanita, my questions.
I
What
didn't hear your question.
motivates you to apply for these positions?
Working with kids
Working with kids. So
because
you mentioned about something like clinical child psychologist. So which is something different from what Sean and Shelby. They are more to clinical psychologists, right?
yeah,
Okay. So what is your future plan moving forward from this particular stage?
I had a lot of discussion with the other clinicians during my internship, especially to see how exactly you go about doing this because I want to specialize. The ideal way, according to them, is to do my master's in clinical, and if not, it'll have to be like maybe two different masters. So one in clinical, one in child, so that you can understand both fields better and combine your knowledge.
Okay. Yes. The other participants, do you have any questions? Maybe you can answer, Nita, based on the internship as well as her current full-time job.
Challenges as working as a shadow aide. So I just started shadowing this week actually. Um, but I will say that one of the main challenges is definitely the kid not compliant. Okay, because they you have to be able to follow and catch up with them. And this particular kid, he is very energetic. So being able to catch up to him and sort of like physical effort because you have to sort of hold him, but also mental effort because it can be very draining. And do it like maybe 1 2 hours in, you're gonna be like, is this really what I want to do? Because it takes that amount of But when it shows, like when he starts improving, then you realize that what you did helped. And then you're like, oh, that's why I'm in this field. At least for me, lah, that was one of the challenges. And my advice is definitely, again, patience and being flexible and being very, how to say, like aware of what's going on, what's happened to the kid, his past, the environment, because every little thing that it may seem minor to us, it actually affects the kid in a very large way. Yeah. So be patient and be aware of the surroundings and get help from those who have in I hope that answered your question.
Shanita, can you repeat the part where you say get help from what? Because it actually hang.
Okay, sorry. Get help from the teachers of the school who have interacted with the kid before, or
Mhm.
even their classmates if they're old enough, to see and understand their situation better because they would know more about what happened before. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Any more?
Okay. At this school, there is no clash because they are also aware of what the kid has been through, and they are hoping that we will be able to help. So they've been very helpful in um, assisting us in helping the child's behavior. Um, Not really differing opinions. The only caution that the school had given us before we started was that there would be no physical actions to like pinching the kid and everything, which is not acceptable in any way as well. And once we clarified that we would not be going to that extent, they were okay with us however we doing whatever we need to handle the behavior, whether it was him taking him to do his work in a different environment, changing around his position in class and whatnot. Things like that were totally fine and they were very open to helping us, which is really good. In practicality, in practicalities. Um, a little bit. I think doing ABA is like in the center where I work as is very different as doing it with the kid in school because at least in the center I work at there's like a specific workstation and the kid sort of is more compliant. But in a school setting it's more difficult, especially because the other kids they kind of like stare at you and they also want the attention that you're giving to this one kid. And the kid is not as compliant, so you can put through certain things like getting them to pay attention and whatnot, but it takes a longer time and much more effort. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, Edward.
Yeah,
Real
true.
challenge encountering schools that don't share your approach. And from my seniors' experience, they've shared a few things as well.
Any other questions from the participants? So, Shanita, are you planning to take ABA course?
Uh, I don't know yet if I want to take an ABA course. I might.
Yeah, that would be good for you in terms of practical part. Okay, if no other questions, then we will end this sharing sessions. I hope that it is actually beneficial for you guys, that you can get to learn a little bit about what are the areas that psychology student can actually apply their knowledge and how you can actually apply the knowledge. Because most of the time you will think that all the tasks that your lecturer gives you might not be so applicable, but there are ways to apply your knowledge. So all the best for every one of you. Thank you for your time to join us for this sharing sessions. See you guys. Bye.